A woman sleeps alone, in a bed where there is no one else, in a silent room, without voices, without caresses, without a body beside her. There are those who think that this is a tragedy. There are those who see in it loneliness, failure, emptiness. But what if that nameless bed has become an altar? What if that space so quiet is sacred ground where God speaks more clearly? What if sleeping alone is not absence, but divine choice? Today I want to speak to you, woman who sleeps alone, who may have cried at night for not feeling human arms around you, who may have felt that your room is big, cold, uninhabited, who has asked yourself, could it be that something is wrong with me? No, it's not like that. This message is for you, because that empty bed is not empty, because that absence is not abandonment, but invitation. Because in feminine solitude there is a mystery that the world does not understand, but that heaven honors. Have you asked yourself why there are women in the Bible who walked alone? Why God seems to hide some while others are displayed? Why there are women set apart, without partners, without children, without visible titles, and yet carry an anointing that burns? Because there is a hidden purpose, an invisible preparation, an intimacy that can only be achieved in silence. Because there are nights when no human body can sustain you, but there is a presence that never sleeps. Jacobo Grinberg spoke of a neural field, of that sacred network that connects the invisible with the visible. And when a woman sleeps alone, without distraction, without noise, without false comforts, that field activates. Because the feminine soul, when in pure solitude, enters dimensions where eternal purposes begin to be revealed. Because the clean heart, when alone, becomes a burning lamp. And because in the night, while everyone sleeps, there is a spiritual war that only some are called to fight. Intercessory women, faithful women, hidden women. It is not weakness to sleep alone. It is a calling. It is not scarcity. It is training. It is not abandonment. It is consecration. Because in that bed where no one embraces you, there is a God who surrounds you, a faithful husband, an invisible defender, a lover without deceit, an eternal provider. And that room is not just another room. It is an altar. It is a battlefield. It is a throne room. This video is not for everyone. It is for those who are ready to understand the language of heaven, for those who do not seek a partner out of desperation, but seek purpose out of obedience, for those who want more than human love. They want divine presence. For those who know that God is not being late, He is building, and that in the meantime His faithfulness is their shield, their purity their fragrance, and their waiting a seed of glory. Today we will talk about you, about that woman alone who is not alone, about that empty bed that is an altar, about that silence that is a covenant. Today we will open our eyes together to the secret, that sleeping alone is not lack, it is destiny. Solitude is not an empty room. It is fertile ground, a land where there is no noise of opinions, where there are no human interferences, where everything becomes clearer. It is there where God plants seeds that could not germinate in the world's noise, because there are revelations that only bloom in silence. There are visions that are only seen in stillness, and there are callings that are only heard when everything else has been removed. There are women who have been led to solitude not by mistake, but by design, because the Creator does not improvise. He sets apart, He hides, He isolates, not to punish, but to transform. In solitude, God works without interruptions. He shapes character, heals old wounds, burns the impurities of emotion. The woman who submits to the fire of solitude does not come out the same. She comes out with a new look, a new voice, a new authority, because she was polished in a place where no one saw her, but where God contemplated her all the time. When the soul no longer has anyone to talk to, it learns to speak with heaven. When there is no one to embrace her, she learns to be embraced from above. And when there is no human name calling her, she begins to recognize God's voice calling her by name. That is what turns solitude into spiritual ground. The change of focus. It's no longer about what is missing outside, but about what is growing inside. There is a very common lie, that being alone means being incomplete, But spiritual truth says the opposite. Being alone can be the perfect setting to become whole, because the wrong company fragments, but solitude well-lived unifies. You are not alone as punishment. You are alone by calling, because you are being set apart, not abandoned. You are being formed, not ignored. The caterpillar is also isolated in its cocoon, but what emerges afterward flies. When God wants to deal with you on a deep level, He first clears the land. And that sometimes means removing relationships, silencing voices, closing doors. Solitude is not an absence. It is a divine strategy. It is the way God says, I want your attention without distractions. And when He has your attention, He can give you direction. He can show you not only who you are, but who He is for you. The feminine soul is like a garden. It needs space, light, and spiritual water to flourish. But many gardens never bear fruit because they are full of emotional weeds, of unnecessary interferences. Solitude pulls out those weeds. Solitude cleanses. And once the garden is clean, the Holy Spirit can plant eternal. He can water it with His presence. He can make it bloom with purpose. In that empty room, there are not just walls. There are echoes of heaven. There are silences that speak louder than 1,000 words. There are long nights that are actually sacred encounters. Because when a woman dares to see her solitude as an altar, everything changes. She is no longer a victim of abandonment. She is a priestess of silence. She no longer begs for human company. She cries out for glory. She no longer waits for someone. She waits for the one. And that spiritual ground, that solitude lived with surrender, becomes a field of heavenly training. There you learn to listen, to discern, to resist. There your faith matures. Your identity is affirmed. And your dependency shifts from men to God, because there are dimensions of divine love that are only understood when you have no one but Him. And when He is all you have, you discover that He is all you need. When all the lights of the world go out and everyone's voice is silent, there remains a single presence that does not leave, a single voice that does not quiet, a single love that does not fail. That is God, the faithful husband, the only one capable of filling the soul to overflow without the need of skin or human promises or rings. The world sells an incomplete idea of love. It believes that a woman is loved only when someone chooses her. But heaven has a different logic. God does not wait for you to be perfect to love you. He does not walk away if you cry too much. He is not bothered by your doubts. He does not flee when you are afraid. He stays. And more than that, He covers. He embraces without touching. He speaks without words. He comforts from within, because God is not a beautiful idea. He is real, alive, present, and He is with you in every night where no one else arrives. In the book of Hosea, God reveals Himself as a husband who pursues his unfaithful wife, not to punish her, but to love her better. It says, I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. The wilderness is a symbol of solitude, but also of encounter, because when everything has been stripped away, He reveals Himself as enough. When there are no human names left to call, the name of God resounds louder. God is not a plan B while the real husband arrives. He is the eternal husband. And if there happens to be a human husband, he will only be a pale reflection of the love He has already given you. That's why you do not wait for a man like an emotional beggar. You wait with dignity, with your head held high, because you are already loved. You are already chosen. You already have a covenant. This love does not depend on what you do. It doesn't fade if you stumble. It doesn't get angry if you feel weak, because it is perfect love, patient love, love that disciplines but does not abandon, that corrects but does not wound, that waits for your yes without pressure, that never leaves. And in that intimate relationship with Him, you learn to trust, to let go of anxiety, to enjoy the process, to understand that if He keeps you waiting, it is not out of forgetfulness, but purpose. He is preparing you for great things. And he does it first in secret. Like a goldsmith, he polishes you in silence, without witnesses. And in that silence, he makes you fall in love. Because the soul falls in love with the one who cares for it in the darkness, not with the one who only applauds its light. God is the only one who can fill every corner of your heart without hurting you, the only one who can embrace your spirit and leave you stronger than before, the only one who knows every wound and still does not turn away. He sees you as you are and still says, "You are mine." That faithfulness is more real than any human promise. And when you embrace it, you no longer feel like you are waiting for someone. You discover you are already with someone. The Bible is full of women who walked alone, but not empty. Women without a husband, without children, without applause. Women who were not popular, but were powerful. They live what many live today. Misunderstanding, waiting, silence. But they also experience what many have yet to discover. The faithfulness of a God who never abandons the one he loves. Let's consider Hannah, the mother of Samuel. For years she was barren. Her husband had another woman. Her heart wept in secret, while others mocked her waiting. But in the midst of that deep loneliness, Hannah did not become bitter. She became fervent. She cried out in silence. And in that secret place, God gave her not just a son, but a prophet who would change the history of Israel. Because a prayer that is born from solitude holds a power that noise will never know. Then there is Ruth, a widow, a foreigner, with no apparent promise. She could have stayed in Moab, resigned to a life of mourning. But she chose to follow Naomi, chose to follow the God of Israel. In that decision, in that total surrender, God rewarded her with a new story. She married Boaz, had descendants, and became part of the lineage of Jesus. Ruth teaches us that faithfulness in the midst of loss opens doors only God can open. And what can we say about Mary, the mother of Jesus? A young virgin, pregnant by the work of the Holy Spirit, judged by her surroundings, misunderstood even by her fiancé. She was alone many times, even though surrounded by people. But her yes to heaven changed the course of humanity. Mary lived the tension of being chosen without being understood, of having a promise inside her without being able to explain it, of living out God's will, even if it meant bearing stares, suspicions, and silences. These women did not live solitude as punishment, but as a divine platform. In their isolation, God built something eternal. In their waiting, he sowed destiny. In their silence, he spoke louder, and their lives still inspire millions today. When you read the Bible, don't just look for miracles or great names. Look for the silences. Look for those who waited, those who prayed, those who were not celebrated by the world, but were honored by heaven. Because many times what the world calls loneliness, God calls holiness. What others see as neglect, God uses as a womb of purpose. So if today you feel like one of them, in a foreign land, in a process without a clear end, in pain without company, remember that you are in good company. You are not alone. You're walking a path that others have walked before you. And the God who is faithful to them will be faithful to you. The empty room is not just a place where you sleep. It is the space where your soul meets the invisible. It is the room where the doors of the world are closed and the doors of heaven are opened. There, where no one sees you, where no one hears you, where many times it's just you with your thoughts, that is the exact place where God is waiting for you. That bed without human company, that silence that seems like an echo, that twilight that falls at night. Everything can be transformed into an altar. An altar doesn't need gold or incense or sacred stones. It only needs inner fire and surrender. And that is exactly what happens in your room when you decide to turn your solitude into worship. Because a bed where you cry can become a throne of glory. The floor where you knelt can be more powerful than any pulpit. And the air you breathe in that solitude can be charged with the very presence of God. Your room, so ordinary, so everyday, can be a place of heavenly encounters, where you open the Bible and the words leap with life, where you close your eyes and feel that you are not alone, where you pray not to ask, but to know. Because when you understand that this space is an altar, your perspective changes. You no longer wait for time to pass. You wait for glory to descend. Women throughout history have had altars in unthinkable places. Some in prisons, others in huts, others in hospital beds. You have it in your room. Every night can be a service. Every dawn can be a divine appointment. Every tear can be incense. Because God does not dwell in temples made by human hands. He dwells in surrendered hearts. And if yours is surrendered, then that space is already sacred. Do not underestimate what happens when you are alone. That room where you feel nothing is happening is witness to invisible transformations. There God speaks to you in the depths. He corrects you with love. He reminds you who you are. He reveals plans. And above all, He shapes you. The empty room becomes a workshop of destiny, a laboratory of faith, a spiritual delivery room. When Jacob dreamed of the ladder to heaven, he was on the ground, alone, without a pillow, with a stone for support. But there, he had a vision that marked generations. And when he woke up, he said, "This place is a house of God and the gate of heaven." No one would have said it by looking from the outside, but heaven had opened right there. It's the same with you. Maybe from the outside your room says nothing, but heaven sees it differently, because it knows that there is genuine worship, sincere weeping, real seeking. And it doesn't matter if it's messy sometimes, if the bed is unmade, if you have no candles, incense, or background music. God is not looking for aesthetic perfection. He seeks a surrendered heart. What you do in that room, when no one applauds you, when no one posts it online, when no one replies to you, that is what carries the most weight in eternity. Because the real altar does not need a stage. It only needs truth. So the next time you enter your room, don't go in with sadness. Go in with expectation. Don't look at what's missing. Look at what's already there. Because where there is hunger for God, He fills. Where there is surrender, He dwells. And where there is silence, He speaks. One of the greatest dangers in solitude is not sadness, but false comfort. That kind of momentary relief that seems harmless, but diverts the soul from the eternal path. Because not everything that relieves heals. Not everything that entertains builds. And not everything that accompanies is good for you. When a woman enters deep seasons of solitude, her soul becomes vulnerable. And there, in that vulnerability, disguised offers appear. Relationships without commitment, constant distractions, routines that numb the spirit. It's easy to justify it. It's easy to say, "It's nothing. I just don't feel good for a while." But a while can cost you years. A small detour can delay great destinies. The enemy knows he cannot stop God's plan for your life, but he can try to distract you. He can entertain you until you forget what you were hoping for. He can surround you with voices, with screens, with half-hearted affections. Anything that takes away your spiritual hunger is a risk. Anything that makes you feel like it doesn't hurt anymore without actually healing is soft poison. There are comforts that keep you busy, but do not fill you. There are people who come to distract you, not to build you up. There are habits that seem innocent, but slowly extinguish the fire. What's false has a dangerous quality. It looks a lot like what's real. That's why the woman who is waiting must stay alert, not living in paranoia, but with discernment. God does not want you to live in anguish, but He also doesn't want you to settle for substitutes. He is a jealous God, and not because He is selfish, but because He knows that only He can give you what you truly need. Everything else is illusion. Everything else is a loan with interest that your soul will eventually pay. He wants to be your refuge, your joy, your companion. But if you fill your heart with other things, you leave no room for His presence. False comforts not only take you away from God, they also weaken you. They dull your discernment. They make you more permissive. And when the key moment arrives, when the divine opportunity appears, you might not recognize it because you're numb. That's why emotional purity is a priority in the waiting season. It's not about religiosity. It's about spiritual strategy. True comfort is the one that does not pull you away from God, but brings you closer. That doesn't silence your questions, but leads you to the answers. That doesn't numb you, but heals you. That comfort is Him, His voice, His word, His presence, His truth. So if you've been looking for relief in the wrong places, don't condemn yourself. Just return. Return to the pure. Return to the eternal. Return to the altar. Because although false comfort entertains, only the presence of God transforms. And you are not called to survive loneliness. You are called to conquer it. The night is not just a moment to sleep. It is a stage where one of the most intense battles of the soul is fought. When the body rests, the spirit activates. When everything is silent, the inner voices resonate louder. And many times, what seems like insomnia, anxiety, or mere fatigue is, in reality, a spiritual war. The woman who sleeps alone often feels that weight. She can't fully explain it, but she senses it. There are nights when sleep does not come, and instead a strange restlessness appears, as if something is moving in the invisible. And it's not paranoia. It's not exaggeration. It's that, in the night, the heavens open and spiritual dimensions stir. Jacobo Grinberg, in his studies on the neural field, spoke of a matrix of consciousness that connects all of reality. He said there are levels of being that are not accessible in constant wakefulness, but that reveal themselves when the mental noise lowers. And that is what the night is, a portal, a moment of decompression where the soul peeks into realities that by day are disguised. He understood that there is an invisible network that sustains everything, and that human thought, especially when free of distraction, can touch that field and activate it. In spiritual language, that is called discernment. It is the ability to see beyond what is apparent. And many women experience it without knowing. They wake up in the middle of the night with a burden, a name, a weight of prayer. They feel they must get up, that something is calling them. It's not coincidence. It is a heavenly calling. Because while others sleep deeply, God awakens His daughters to fight battles that are not seen, but that change destinies. The spiritual war at night is not always against visible demons. Sometimes it's against thoughts that want to steal your faith, against memories that want to reopen wounds, against fears that whisper lies. The battlefield is in the mind, in the heart, in the spirit. But victory is also found there, when you choose not to give in, when you use the word as a sword, when you pray even if no one hears you, when you rebuke in a whisper but with authority, when you sing in the midst of the darkness. Those nights are not wasted time. They are training. They are war practice. They are moments in which your soul strengthens and your spirit gains muscle. Because while others sleep unaware, you are standing in the gap. And that gap changes things. It stops attacks. It heals territories. It protects generations. Do not fear the night. Do not run from those strange awakenings. Embrace them as part of your calling. You are a watchtower. You are a warrior. You are a sentinel. You are not alone in that battle. You are accompanied by the one who never sleeps. And if He wakes you up, it's because He knows you can endure, because He trusts in you, because He has anointed you for that hour. And every night you overcome, you become more sensitive to the eternal, stronger, clearer, more attuned to heaven. As Grinberg said, consciousness has the power to shape reality. And when a consecrated woman prays in the night, something changes in the day. Even if no one sees it, even if no one says it, the spiritual world moves. So rise when you feel the call. Pray without fear. Declare with faith. Win in secret. Because tomorrow, what you conquer in the night will be a public testimony that God formed you in the darkness to shine with His light. Waiting is not passivity. Waiting is not sitting with crossed arms for something to happen. Waiting, in heaven's language, is cultivating. It is preparing the ground, strengthening yourself inwardly, tuning your ears so that when the time comes, you are ready not just to receive, but to sustain. And when a woman waits with faithfulness, that wait becomes an altar, a battle won, a living redemption. But the world does not see waiting like that. It calls it delay. It calls it failure. It calls it loneliness. However, the Spirit has another perspective. It calls waiting a sacred process, because while you wait, you are being restored. You are being clothed in dignity. You are being delicately formed by God who does not improvise. He is not late. He is working in you and for you. Jacobo Grinberg, from his research on expanded consciousness, spoke of the structure of the invisible, that deep fabric that shapes perception and reality. In that structure, each thought, each decision, each emotion aligned with the divine reorganizes matter. Waiting is the same. Though from the outside it may look like inaction, inside there is an alignment. Each day of inner faithfulness is aligning you with the eternal. Each act of renunciation is a vibration that alters the spiritual and eventually the physical. God redeems in the wait, not afterwards, not when the happy ending comes, but now, in the midst of the process. He honors you while no one sees you. He crowns you in secret. He clothes you with invisible glory that cannot be stained by praise nor worn down by rejection. And when the world only sees a lonely woman, heaven sees a woman of the altar, a woman of covenant, a woman who walks with the King even if no one walked beside her. Dignity is not received when everything is fine. It is activated in the midst of chaos. When you decide not to trade your faith for fleeting affections, when you choose to remain firm even if everything screams at you to give up, when you keep waiting not out of fear but out of obedience, because you know that if God has you on pause, it's not to deny you something, but to give you something greater. Redemption is not just that God gives you back what you lost. It's that He makes you new, that He brings out of you a purer, stronger, clearer version, that He uses your story, even the painful parts, as a testimony of His faithful love. And that happens in the wait. There, where no one applauds, where no one sees, where only you and Him know what is being born. Do not underestimate your process. Do not despise your faithfulness, because while others run seeking validation, you are being built with eternal foundations. And the day will come when what you waited for will wait for you, and in that moment, you'll know it was worth every lonely night, every no you gave, every tear surrendered to the sky, because your waiting was redemption.